If you're like me, you're probably sitting there wondering, what in the world is this guy doing behind the camera? And that's a good question. It's one that I ask myself as well. A buddy of mine sent me a video earlier, and it had some good points in it, some stuff that the guy who did the video had been going through and things that he had been dealing with. And, I've probably been considering this for quite some time, and I thought, you know what? Might be somebody out there that I could help just from talking about what we're going through right now as a country, and as this thing continues to grow throughout the world. The thing that I'm talking about, obviously, is the coronavirus, and I don't really want to get into what caused it, why it's here specifically. I want to really focus more on, not on the political aspect or who's doing what right and wrong. And I just want to focus on kind of some of the lessons that I've learned over the last 2.5 years and how those things have prepared me for what we're going through right now, and some of the things that that hopefully that I can give you information about, and it might can help you going forward. I will tell you that I do not have all the answers, far from it, and I'm a work in progress. I don't claim to know everything. I don't claim to have anything figured out, and I'm dealing with the same exact shit that everybody else out there is dealing with. And everybody deals with things in their own way, and sometimes those ways are positive and can be growth oriented, and sometimes those things can be very negative and very destructive. And trust me when I tell you that I've dealt with each of those spectrums and everything in between in my own life. So the one thing that we can be sure of is that nothing is carved in stone. And that's the truth until you buy a rock that has, or a stone that has nothing carved in it. So why do I bring that up? Well, I think that's how a lot of us live our lives, as though everything is carved in stone. And when we live our lives that way, we get into the rut of thinking that everything's always going to remain the same, and that everything is never going to change. And that's just not true. And we're all going through that same thing right now. And the thing that I think is most important, or one of the things that's most important, is just how we accept the changes that are going on. And you can look on social media, you can talk to your friends, you can talk to anybody you want to talk to. You're probably going to get a different perspective about change and why this is good or bad or whatever. So some of the changes that I've seen, businesses are failing. Families are having to push off mortgage payments. They don't know when this is going to end. They don't know how it's going to end. They don't know if the things that are being done are actually going to help or hurt. And when you start getting into all of those things, and the hows and the whys is when you can really start to run yourself off the rails. And when all this first happened, I didn't understand anything about any of the stuff. I mean, I had to learn it just like most all people did. And to start with, I started trying to predict, well, by this date, we'll be back to normal. By this date, everything will be back. We'll be good to go. And then the numbers continued to grow and grow and grow. And so, you really have to step back at that point and go, okay, what is it that I have control over? And I think that's one of the main things that I've had to learn for myself over the last 2.5 years, and then as it relates to this, is what do I have control over? And the things that I have control over are, what do I do for myself, for my employees, for the people that work for me, What do I do for my family? How do I lead them, guide them? And, what do we do to protect ourselves? And then, those are really the only things that we can control. I can't control when the stock market does whatever. I can't control when businesses get back going together. I can't control what the president does or who has masks and who doesn't. I can't control any of that stuff. And as soon as I start to take ownership of trying to control those things is when I start down a slippery slope that is not one that is productive for me to go down. Now, if I want to go volunteer time or go help someone, then I have control over those things. But I think one of the main lessons to be learned here, and one of the lessons that I've learned over the last 2.5 years, and am able to practice going through this, is what do I have control over? And I don't sit around just going, I don't have control of that, I don't have control of that. Look, this is hard for everybody. It's hard for me. It's hard for everybody that I know. The people that are still full-time working and the businesses that are still thriving, they've got their own set of problems. They're having trouble finding workers. They're having trouble keeping things going. They're having trouble finding product, whatever the situation might be. And so I think one of the things that would be productive is for every thought that comes into your head, everything that you do, is it related to a rational, logical, thoughtful decision? Or is it related to something that you're trying to control? So what is it that you're trying to control? Is it really within your control? And is it worth your time trying to control it? For example, we don't know when everything's going to come back. So if you sit around wondering and worrying about, well, when's everything going to come back? When's the business going to come back? You're trying to control that, and all you're doing is focusing on that thought of what can I control? And your brain knows that you can't control those things. And it's hard. It's not easy. I'm not saying that, well, you should just sit back and just, focus on those things that you can control and you won't have the thoughts of the other things. That's not what I'm saying. You'll still have those thoughts. Those thoughts will still come up. But it's how you react to those thoughts and how you act on them. Because it does no good to focus on anything that you can't control. And you get to control how you react to those thoughts. We all do that. But you have to train your mind in order to do that. And that's one of the lessons I think that we can learn through this is thinking about those things that we can control. As soon as this started in my business, as soon as I kind of got the idea that things were starting to get bad, I've got thousands of clients, and we had to notify them to make sure that they knew that everything was fine, that we were going to continue operations, and that everything was going to move forward. And it remains that way, and things are definitely slower. But that's something that we can control. When this first happened, if I had said, "Oh, it's not a big deal. We don't have to notify. We got control over this. We can do this. We can do that. We're going to ignore all the warnings about, whether we should quarantine, whatever the issue might be." If I had those thoughts, then I'm trying to take control of something that I really have no control over. So what I did have control over is rallying my troops, bringing everybody together, communication with everyone, talking through the issues, trying to figure out how to alleviate some of the fears of the people that work for me and our clients, giving them information, letting them know how things are going to look going forward, for as long as it takes to weather this storm. So I really think it's really important for you, any thought that you have or any action that you take, just run it through the filter of, is this something that's within my control? Is this something that's worth my time trying to control? Because, like the stone says, nothing is carved in stone. And change is inevitable. And there's some people deal with change in many different ways. And you may deal with it in a way that's productive. You may deal with it in a way that's negative. And you just have to learn what it is that is inside of you that the lack of control is triggering and causing you to act out and causing you to, to think about thoughts that are not productive. The other thing that I think has helped me throughout the process is, and I know for a lot of you, this is going to sound crazy. It's going to sound weird. But just focusing on the positive aspects of what we're going through. Excuse me. I think it's important to focus on the positive aspects, focus on the things. And I would even get out a sheet of paper every morning or whenever you do your quiet time or meditate or whatever it is that you do. Make a list of the positive aspects and how this pandemic is affecting your life. And some of those positive things may be it's forced you inside. It's forced your family to have dinner together. It's forced you to spend more time with your children. It's forced you to do some things around the house that maybe you've been putting off. It's forced you to really look at your expenses and make sure that what you're spending money on is what you need to be spending money on. It's forced you to get outside more. It's forced you to take a walk with your kids or your spouse or your significant other, whoever that might be. It's forced you to take your dog for a walk. It's really interesting when I'm driving around now and number one, there's hardly any traffic anywhere. Number two is there are people outside who would have never in a million years been outside with their kids or just walking down the street. And, that, depending on how you look at it, is mostly a positive thing. Now, you can weigh the factors of, well, if they're going to go bankrupt, then how does being outside help? Well, I think at the end of the day, and at the end of their life, are they going to look back on this event or on their life and say, I really am glad that I spent more time outside with my family or with my friends, whatever it might be. Of course, social distancing in full effect. But it depends on how you look at it. Now, if you choose to look at it in terms of, well, either money or making a living or whatever is more important than being outside, then obviously I would not tell you that that's wrong. I would tell you that that's not how I choose to do it. But everybody gets to choose how they process this information and how it makes them feel and what emotions they have as it relates to this. So speaking of emotions, I think it's important for all of us to step back and just really get a good feel about how being quarantined or how being unable to hang out with friends or do the things that you normally do that you probably enjoy, how is that making you feel emotionally? And what impact is that having on you? And, certainly you can be angry. You could be in a fit of rage. You could be violent. You could be serious. You could be calm. You could be anxious. You could be joyful. You could be all those things. And so if you're angry or if you're scared or if you're worried, then you just have to think about whether that is something that you are going to be wasting your time, spending time worrying about. And if that's making you angry, then obviously you can choose a better feeling thought. And so rather than being angry that you're laid off or you're not making a full paycheck or your business is failing, look at it as an opportunity. And that's a lot easier said than done. And trust me when I tell you, I'm not perfect when it comes to these things. I mean, I have to remind myself of these things every day. And I have to deal with the same stuff that everybody else out there is dealing with. And so really pay close attention to your emotions. And, when you can, do things that are going to increase the joy in your life, whatever that might be, whether it's getting outside, whether it's reading a book. These are the things that we have time now to do. And a lot of people over, time, they wish that they had this, or wish that they had more time, or they wish that there wasn't so much traffic. And, here we are. Our wishes have come true. And I think we really make a horrible mistake if we do not take advantage of these opportunities. Now, one of the lessons to be learned is about finances and about what's most important in life. I think that's probably a topic for a whole nother video, but I do think it's important to really refocus and reprioritize and decide for ourselves what we feel like is most important. And I'll probably do another video just on this one topic, but I'm gonna go over this in closing, because I think we've got a couple things that hopefully will help with what is it that you can't control, that you're trying to control, and then also paying attention to your emotions. And then this last thing, I went through the crash in 2008, and there were a few business sectors that suffered greatly. The mortgage industry, attorneys that did real estate closings. I mean, there were some other folks, mortgage people, that really suffered more than others. Now, I'm not saying that not everyone suffered, but it was certainly a slow time. And for those of us that went through that period of time, it was a very isolating period, because it felt like not everyone was going through the same thing. And I think that's in fact true, that not everybody was experiencing the same amount of loss of business revenue, and just, having to deal with things and move around, assets and try to figure out how to weather the storm. In this situation, I think it's a unique opportunity, because this doesn't just affect one segment of the population. It doesn't just affect one industry. In fact, it doesn't just affect one area of our country, or it doesn't affect one area of the world. This is a worldwide issue, which I think is further evidence that this was not something that I think that this happened, whether it was this or something else, to help us to learn some lessons. And I think we really miss the point if we don't focus on those lessons that we're supposed to learn, because now is a perfect time to shed some of the old habits and to the old ways of thinking, and put things into perspective, and really get centered around what it is that you want for your life, and what it is that you consider to be important. And I think that's certainly something that you should seriously be considering, and just really focus on what it is, what is the lesson that I'm supposed to learn here, because we are being forced to do some things that we don't do often. We're generally a mobile society, a mobile world, and we get out and about, and we can be on the other side of a country or the other side of the world in a few hours. So I think it's important to really focus on what it is that you're supposed to be learning, and what the lessons are for you as you move through this certainly difficult time. I would never say that this is not a difficult time for everyone, but we're all in the same boat. Are there exceptions to that? Absolutely. There's always exceptions. And you can convince yourself that you're going to be the exception, or that you're the only one out there. But trust me when I tell you, it's affecting millions and millions of people in all walks of life. And whether that makes you, gives you anxiety, or think that, it's a doomsday scenario or situation, no matter what it does for you, I think that it should give you some amount of comfort that you're not in this alone. We're all in this together, and we all have to figure out how we're going to be as we move through this. Are you going to be angry? Are you going to be upset? Are you going to be violent? Are you going to be a hater of whatever government is that you're under. I mean, who are you going to be? And how are you going to respond and show up for your job, your employees, the people that you love, family members, friends, whoever? Like, who are you going to be? Are you going to spread a positive message, or are you going to spread a doomsday message? Because one thing that is for sure, and that is that everything is always working out for me and for you. You just have to believe it. And what that means is, up to this point in your life, there has never been something that you have not made it through. Think about that. Think of all the times that you worried yourself sick over whatever it might be. And either it came true and it was less than you expected, or it didn't even come true. So everything is always working out for you. I would suggest that you write that down. Write it on a piece of paper. Keep it close to you. And whenever you get down, whenever you get upset, just pick it up and read it. Everything is always working out for me. And it is, and it will continue to do that. But don't sit around and watch the news, and don't continue to refresh the death count on the website and the people who have the coronavirus. It's not productive, and you have to really protect what goes into your mind. And if you are not able to separate and to ingest the news, the media, then I think you're doing yourself a great disservice by immersing yourself into that. Now, I've been on a media fast for years, but it doesn't mean that I don't pay attention and I don't stay informed. And even in my own life, I mean, it's really hard to consume mass amounts of media, no matter what organization you tend to watch more than others. It's just not good. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I want to make sure that that you focus on what's most important. Rearrange your priorities. Focus on what the lessons are here. What is this trying to teach me about myself? And always remember, everything is always working out for you. Talk to you soon. Thanks.